My name is Empress, Ciku Kimani Mwaniki. I'll explain that Empress. I have an empire, but it's in my head. So I'm an author, and I am a newspaper columnist. Yeah, that's what I do now. I've had other careers before in corporate. I didn't like it, so I'm no longer in corporate. So now I work from home, and also recently I have started referring to myself as a mountaineer. So yeah, author, columnist, mountaineer. So I was born in 1974. It always feels like it's 33 years ago, or 36 years ago. But yeah, 1974 in Limuru. Last born in a big family of 8. And grew up, my school life. I used to go to a primary school that was only about 200 meters away. So local. High school, I went a little further to Nakuru. Is it Nakuru or Nyahururu? It's somewhere right in between. And then I finished high school and I went to college. I don't really like speaking about my college life, not because anything bad happened, but I have politics with college. So I prefer to ignore the college bit of my life because it has had very little impact to what I've become in life. When you train as an administrator, usually you end up staying in the office. I hated it. In about 2 years, I knew it wasn't my thing, and I started looking for things to do that did not keep me down. Ended up in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. Worked there for 3 years as a manager of some sort. I was in marketing. That was okay because there was a lot of going around. And then after Tanzania, went to the UK, stayed there for about 3 years. I call my UK years, I call them my lost years because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But it was in the UK that I discovered, not really discovered, I would say in the UK is when I realized that I could actually earn money with writing because somebody, a friend, asked me to write something for them. They used to run a website. And I wrote, and he asked me, why don't you write? And I'm like, because I'm not a trained journalist or a trained writer. So yeah, after UK, getting lost and discovering myself, I started writing my first book when I was in the UK. It's called Nairobi Cocktail. Nairobi Cocktail, I wrote it because I was homesick. I wanted to be home so much. It was over Christmas. And I remember I called home and I could hear a lot of noise in the background and people were laughing, they were happy. My mother was telling me, no, everybody's here except you and 2 of my brothers who lived abroad. And I remember I cried so much. So I spoke to another friend and I was telling him how upset I am that I'm not home. And he's like, why don't you write down your feelings? So I started writing. But then I discovered, the things I'm writing about missing Nairobi, they could become a book. So I started writing on a notebook. But it took me 10 years to have the book out. But yes, this book is like, I think my proudest moment. How did I write my second book? Because I think after that Christmas where I cried so much, I came back to the country. Before the next Christmas, I was determined not to spend another cold Christmas. So I came back to the country and then I wanted to write about the things I hated about living in the West. I used to live in London. And I started doing the same thing I was doing with the Nairobi Cocktail. So I called it Immigrant Cocktail. Immigrant Cocktail is a compilation of, well, it's one whole book, but different characters. Based on true stories, true things that happen there, but the characters are fictional, of course. So it's a bit of a warning of, the people tend to be very positive about going there, and there's nothing wrong about being positive, but I think we over-expect our lives to change dramatically for the better when we leave, but it's not going to happen. It's hard out there. So the stories here are stories of the experiences people go through, and that's Immigrant Cocktail. Then after that, I thought, okay, now I'm a writer, I could come up with another story. So there is a Cocktail from the Savannah. This one is nothing to do with my experience, but I just thought there was a time people were really talking on, they were going on and on about polygamy. So there was a time people were talking about polygamy, and I just thought, as much as I personally don't want to be in a polygamous relationship, I think it's unfair to divide people into the polygamous and the ones who are not in polygamous relationship, because there are many reasons why people become polygamous. So I thought I need a character who will be lovable so that he can tell the story. And I chose on the Maasai community, because the Maasai is, up till now, people sort of, if they hear a Maasai with 2, 3 wives, nobody gets shocked, because it's like, that's what they do. So my character is a Maasai man with struggling because he loves his first wife, and but his first wife doesn't have a baby and stuff like that. So without giving any spoilers, yeah, it's about a polygamous family. So yeah, now I'm a writer. How am I a columnist? I would say I became a columnist also, I think, by pure luck, because the same friend who gave me some work in the UK to write for the website, when I told him I was returning home, he told me that I should try and get a job with a major newspaper in Kenya, and he gave me somebody's name. So he sent me, so I got in touch with that editor, told me give me a sample. I suppose he liked the sample, because I got a weekly column that lasted for 7 years. And then after that, about 3 years after that, I got another column with the Nairobian, which still runs on right now. It's called The Villager. So yeah, that's my life of being a writer. And right now I'm happy and proudly an author and writer. Hesitant about saying I'm a journalist, because I think that's a bit more something different. I think also because I never write about one character. So my books always have multiple characters. I don't concentrate. Sometimes people find it hard to pick on who the main character is in a book. So it's a cocktail of characters. Also, I needed something that could identify me, because like after the second cocktail, people started calling me Ciku Cocktail. Yeah, so whenever somebody says the cocktail series, I know they're talking about me. So it's a way of branding as well, and I think it's worked really well. Recently, maybe a year or two, I started using the name Empress on my name. I'm an Empress of a very big empire in my head, and it's super huge. So also that's also a way of branding, and it's worked, because even these days, if I call somebody new, I'll say hi, hello, this is Ciku, and then they'll go like, which Ciku? And then if I say Empress, they're like, oh, hi, this is you. So I think that's just branding, and yeah, I kind of like it very much. I think I'm still finding my purpose, because the thing with me is I am unable to take life too seriously. I mean, I get tired. I think people waste too much time worrying about too many things. I think people should learn to enjoy the present. For instance, when I turned 40, 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis. So my hip arthritis had started eating my hip. That was a bit of a shocker because I'm one of those people who've been extra active in life. You know, I've outdoor running, I've done even the London Marathon, I've done half marathons, I've done all those things. And in my head, I used to think arthritis is for old people, and 40 is not old. I used to think it's for old people, it's for people who are not active, it's for, you know, it's just not me. I was just not a candidate. So that was a big shock. And then I didn't know what to do with myself at that time. It wasn't as bad. The pain wasn't so bad at that time, so I could still manage to do things, but I knew I would have to slow down, and slowing down for me felt like a death sentence. So it was a bit depressing. So in 2021, I made a decision to have a total hip replacement because I felt like I need to live. I was just existing. I would laugh, but you know, every time I laughed, you know, like I'd cringe because even there are things I couldn't do. There, I couldn't bend properly. I couldn't squat. I could, you know, I just felt like this cannot be my life forever. And of course, there are risks to what I was about to do. But I weighed them, and I'm like, you know what, the risks. There's a lot more I need to tell you. It's a huge story, so don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after the break. So I made the decision. I went and had a total hip replacement, which was a success, thankfully. And then by January, I started walking about the operation. I did it in October 2021. So by January, I started walking around the compound because I think that by that time the clutches were down. I had put them down. So I'd walk a bit. It increased, and it was like the most amazing thing in the world to be pain-free. You know, I had lived with pain for 7 years. So to take a step and be pain-free was out of this world. And then in, I think it was March, some friends and I started walking Karura Forest. And I remember that first day I did that walk, and I had to tell my friends, just leave me, because if you wait for me, then, you know, this walk is going to take forever. And I remember the feeling I had when I did the 5 kilometers. I did the short one. It was out of this world. But that point, I think that was my turning point. And I think that's the point where I felt like, now, yeah, my life has a purpose. I'm not sure what it is right now, the purpose, but I feel like there's a purpose to this. So then in July, in July I had this group. I joined the group through my husband. It was a group of people. At that point, there was only one lady who wanted to summit Everest, and why we joined is that they were looking for people to cheer them on during the training. So they were doing the local climbs and everything. So I joined because, I mean, in my head, I never thought that I'd be one of the people going to Everest. So we started climbing. There was Donyo Sabuk, there was Ngong Hills, then we went to Longonot, we went to where? We went to Elephant Hill, we went to Satima, we've been to Elgon, Ngong Hills again and again. So anyway, that's part of the training, which has worked for me both physically and mentally, because like physically I've lost like 3/4 of the weight I had gained. So why we are summiting, because we thought if you're going to do something so huge like going to Everest, it had better be for a good cause. So the cause is to raise awareness in adolescents and mental health. And I think I'm not way past adolescence, but I think I'm also benefiting so much from this. And I can say for sure, I can speak for the people who are not here, the ones we've been climbing with, is that whenever we have those mental health discussions, they will tell you that it's been a journey. They've learned to listen to their bodies, they've learned to listen to their minds, they've learned how far to push themselves, they've learned that you can go to the next step, that sometimes it can look so hard, but if you just, sometimes take time, stop, think. So life is like a mountain, and that's the whole idea. Young women who want to be in leadership, I think the first thing I would tell them is that they will meet a lot of resistance, because being a woman is already hard enough. I know there are people who don't believe that, but most of them are not women, so they're in no position to say what is hard or not. But I think they should look at that, their quest to be a leader, as a mountain as well. There will be so many hurdles. Yeah, there will be so many hurdles. I remember when I got my job in Dar es Salaam, first there was the issue of being a woman, there was the issue of being a foreigner, and there was the issue of being young, because I was quite young. I think I was about 26. So I'm a 26-year-old woman who's being put in charge of a whole department of people who've been in that. But I think what got me through is first, like I had told you earlier, that I'm unable to take things too seriously. So to offend me takes a lot of effort. If you offend me, you've really succeeded in life. And then there was the issue of knowing that even if I don't do what they want, somebody will still get offended, because out there will be someone who is going to offend you, to get offended by what you do, what you say. It doesn't matter what it is. Even being nice is offending sometimes. So they need, if it's within the law, if they can live with it, then I think young women need to stop worrying too much about what the society will think about them, because they will be judged. They'll be judged either way. It's a very judgmental society. I probably have had a lot of challenges, but I am finding it difficult to think what they are. Not because my life has been easy, but because I play down things, because I want to look at them at my level. So if I look at something and I say, "Ooh, that's a challenge," then it's going to look so huge. But if I look at it like just a bump on the road, not like a mountain out there, then, but if I think hard, I would say, of course, first of all, this is a funny one. When I was in Dar es Salaam, and there were some people trying to get rid of me who were not very happy with what I do. I was accused of being a witch. It was quite funny. And I think that was at some point where I didn't even believe in spirituality or religion or stuff like that. So the idea of a witch was so out of this world. But I laughed it. I laughed it off. And I'm like, why, whom have I bewitched? And of course they couldn't prove, but except they brought an uchumi bag. They said they found something in an uchumi bag, and because uchumi was Kenyan and I was the only Kenyan there, they're like, she has to be the only one with the uchumi bag. Challenge is because I'm extremely outspoken, I get people trying to, I think I pose as a challenge to many people. So I have these challenges that I don't realize that they are challenges, but there's somebody trying to put me in my place. So there's always somebody trying to put me in my place, maybe on social media, or, they're like, yule shiko anajionanga ni, who do they think they are? And you got these challenges that shouldn't be challenges. But I think my being outspoken sometimes has played against me, because very few people want a mouthy woman. And mouthy sounds bad. I'm just using the word mouthy because that's what people who want to make you feel bad about what you are use it. But I don't think there's anything wrong with being mouthy. You're just being opinionated. As long as you believe in your own opinions. Success to me is happiness. Seriously, I know that sounds very simplistic, but I've been in big positions where I've been miserable. the money was awesome, and maybe I could go and treat myself to something that would make me feel happy just for a short while. But I think the first step to being successful is to make sure what you're doing is something that is going to make you happy, not miserable. Because if you are happy, then you'll be happy doing what you're doing. So if you have a career or a job that you look forward to going to in the morning, or you wake up in the morning and you're thinking, yeah, another day at work, I think you're successful. Of course, success comes with money, because it's hard to feel like a success when you're a pauper, when you're struggling and you're worried about what you're going to eat. It's very important to have mentors in whatever we do, and I think that's the one thing we are lacking as a country. I think we've failed miserably in that department, and because if I had a mentor, if somebody had spotted my my ability to write, like for instance, I went to a primary school, a local primary school where we didn't even speak English. I'm proud to say that I learned my mother tongue from class 1 to class 4. But then after that, because everybody is the same tribe, we spoke that language. So I could not speak English. Not, I could understand, but having a conversation in English was torture. But I know when I went to high school, I struggled, because now there are all these people from Nairobi who could speak English of nose. But now that I'm successful and I'm an author, some of my teachers in primary school, they meet me and they're like, you used to write very good compositions. And I'm thinking, now you tell me, yeah? Now you tell me. If somebody in my high school, like a teacher, had told me we need to do something about you writing too much, because I was caught a lot of times writing things down or reading a book. If somebody had told me, instead of punishing me for what I was doing, if they had told me that, by the way, if you could do this for your grades, then you can put time aside for, we try and see what we can do with this. So nobody did that for me. So that one was lost. If somebody had grabbed me at that time, I wouldn't have wasted so much time doing this. But to pay for that, I mentor people, because they always, these young people who get to know about you on social media, or they read papers and they'll write to me and they'll tell me, hey Ciku, I want to be a writer, da, da, da. So then I'll sit them down, I'll engage them. So I'm happy that I do that. Yeah, but I think every school, it should be a rule to have mentors and people who pick and spot talent. My highlight has been to be paid free. To do things I thought I would never be able to do, to make the decision to go to Everest, to also, I have a YouTube program. I host a YouTube program for writers, for authors. Being a host is not something I thought, it was never in my head. So it was also a risk. It's a risk I took. I was like, okay, I can do this. So yeah, those have been my highlights, and it's been super awesome. It's been super awesome. The lessons, I have learned some lessons. Yeah. Some is that you need to love your career. You're going to spend so much time at work. I think you might as well do something that is going to make you laugh. I have learned that you need to grab the moments. Don't worry so much about tomorrow. Even if you have like a nasty boss, because I've had some really nasty bosses before. But I don't think you should let anybody dictate how you're going to spend your time at work. I have learned that to say yes is an awesome thing, as long as, again, I keep repeating, as long as you can live with it, as long as it's within the law. I think everybody should be able to say yes more to things, because I know doors have opened for me because I said yes, even to something I had no experience over. I think it's important also to not worry too much about money, as good as it is. Sometimes when things align at work, then money comes in. And I wish somebody had sat me down to tell me, no, you're not playing in the same field. You might look like it's the same field. And it doesn't mean that you hate the men. It just means somebody should remember that you're coming from different starting points. And the field is different. One side is bumpy, the other one is a bit smooth. The goal might be the same, but no, the ride is definitely not the same. I wish somebody had told me that.